Hey y'all, my name is Brooke Richmond. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist, and we are back for another discussion, breakdown, talk about the show Ginny in Georgia, and I'll be focusing on episodes 3 and 4. Okay, so in this discussion, I want to specifically talk about Marcus and our girl Abby. Okay, it is very, very clear that they both have a lot going on, and my therapist alarms have been going off for a little minute about these two. So let's break some things down. Let's dive into what's going on with these two characters. Starting with Abby. Okay, so we learned in seasons 1 and 2 we see her world. We get a window into her home life, her family dynamic. She's an only child. Her mom and dad are therapists, and we see different scenes where she's overhearing her mom and dad having these really intense arguments. They get a divorce, and now in season 3 we are seeing how Abby is dealing with all of this, right? How she's coping with all of this on top of having an eating disorder, right? And so she's coping. We see she's coping in very unhealthy ways. She's smoking, she's skipping school, she's acting erratically, she's hooking up with somebody that she doesn't even really like that. And then in one scene, she gets really, really drunk. She's got a lot going on. She's dealing with a lot, rightfully so. Her family has fallen apart, and again, she's dealing with the loss of what she's known for her whole life. And so as I'm watching Abby, I'm like, okay, what's going on underneath the surface? We see all of the different behaviors, everything is very clear on how she's dealing with everything, but what's going on underneath all of that? And so I made some notes here, that Abby that I'm getting that Abby feels invisible, right? She's struggling with an eating disorder. She's made several comments connected to, her body and her body image issues. And no one has really asked any further questions. Maybe they don't know. I'm not completely sure yet. I'm only on episodes 3 and 4. And, again, these are high school kids. I get it. Some stuff just doesn't stand out to you because you just don't know what you don't know. But I feel like Abby has tried to make comments as a cry for help because she's dealing with a lot. She's struggling. And, I feel like she was trying to be vulnerable with Press, somebody she's been knowing since they were kids, and that did not go well. His response was extremely dismissive, very disregarding. And again, going back to her feeling invisible, I also made a note that um, Abby feels alone. As I'm watching this season and thinking about the previous seasons, I see why Mang, the friend group Mang, is so important to her, why she's so attached to them. Mang at this time in her life is her family. She needs them. She needs that support. She needs her friend group. She needs the joy and the love that they come with, right? And this feels good to her. She feels safe here. She's familiar with these girls, and so um, but outside of Mang and kind of within the group Mang, she's alone. Her mom has completely checked out because she's dealing with things in her own way. Mang is aware of the divorce and how that could be impacting Abby, but they're still not fully aware of everything that she's dealing with, right? So that can just feel really, really lonely. You can just feel unseen, not understood, right? I also made a note that Abby feels abandoned, by the divorce. She had mentioned in, I believe, episode 4 that, dad is gone and mom, you're a mess. And you're, when she was drunk, she was like, you're just as drunk as me. And, we see that Abby's mom had completely checked out. And so now she's left to deal with this big change, this huge transition in her life by herself. She's alone. And I also took it as like, okay, yes, she's being abandoned, or she's experiencing abandonment by the divorce, not just physically but emotionally. Like her dad left the home. Now, she's physically away from her dad, but emotionally she's being abandoned because nobody's like really checking in. How is Abby doing? How is she feeling? How is she handling all of this? That's something um that's something to consider. That's something that's really important to think about. And I wanted to spend a little bit more time on that scene where she gets really drunk at the dance. Nora brings her home. Mom walks in and she's like, "What are you doing?" Right? And I love that, Abby, in her drunkenness, she tells her mom, "I really needed you." Yeah, she says, "I really needed you." And she repeats that. And I think it's so important that when there's a huge transition like that within the family unit, a divorce, a death, anything that's major and impactful, even though, yes, as the adults, we are going through our own struggles, issues, challenges, the child still needs support. They still need to know that they're not alone in what they're dealing with, right? And when Abby said to her mom, "I really needed you," that's her letting her mom know, like, this is affecting me too. I'm impacted by this as well. My dad is gone. And Abby's what, 15, 16 years old? So for 15, 16 years, this is all she's known, is her parents to be together, be under the same roof. And they were a family, and the family fell apart. Now the dad got a girlfriend. That's hard. That's hard to process as an adult, yes, but also as a child, right? And so, yeah, so the divorce happens, and the family unit is completely impacted, and Abby is struggling. Okay. Um, and something else I made a note of is, Abby, came for her mom when she was drunk, and she's like, you just as drunk as me. And so I feel like we're also seeing that Abby is mirroring some of the ways that her mom is coping with the divorce, right? And that's big too, because as the parents, as the adult, the caregiver, we are the example. That is the role that we take on when we step into that kind of role in our lives, when we step into those big spaces in someone's life, a parent, a mom, a dad. you know you are the example. The kids are watching you as well. So, just want to make sure that I point that out. um I've just, I made a note that, at the end of the day, Abby is heartbroken. She's sad. She's feeling alone. She's dealing with the loss of her family unit. She, um, the divorce is hard for her too. She's trying to process everything. And, I do want to, though, in episode, I think that's episode 4, the car scene between um, Abby and her mom. They're having a conversation in the car. I want to give mom, I want to give mom her props. I want to give mom kudos, because after Abby has this, moment where she is drunk and she's going off on her mom, mom comes back and she takes accountability in that car, right? We see that she takes accountability, and that she, um, I feel like she took accountability, and she also humanized herself, because she said, "I haven't been handling things well." That's that's major. And it's important that parents, or the adults in their child's life, that you be transparent and vulnerable too, because we do want to, empathize with mom. She just lost her husband and he's already, trying to move on. And that's hard. That's hard. Right. And so when she said, I haven't been handling things well, I love that she took accountability. She humanized herself. And I think that softened Abby. And I think Abby was able to see her mom in a new light. And then something else that mom did, while she took accountability, she also gently and lovingly held Abby accountable for her actions. And I love that she reassured Abby, you know what? We're in this together. I know your dad is gone. I know you were closer to your dad. Just even acknowledging, the family dynamics within the actual family unit, those subsystems that take place within family units. You were closer to your dad. You're here with me. He's gone. There's a divorce taking place. This is messed up. And I feel like mom really sat in that space with Abby, and that was great. And she even, started getting more into back into her mom role, which is necessary, and helping Abby to kind of, um, find that structure in her life again by getting her back in tutoring. And, she was like, no more skipping school, no more drinking, no more smoking. We got to get it together, both of us. We got to get it together. Okay. And so shout out to mom. Kudos to mom for hearing Abby when she had that moment. She was hearing that cry for help from Abby. Yes, initially she did get defensive, but I love that she was able to come back and say, you know what? You were right. I'm a mess and I have been a mess. That is huge. That is huge. And I think we're going to see a different response from Abby moving forward. That's my hope. Let me see. Did I miss anything here? Looking at my notes. I feel like now that mom and Abby have had this conversation, that hopefully she gets more support with handling the divorce. And maybe Abby will open up to her mom about her eating disorders and how that's been affecting her. Abby just needs a lot of support. Okay. There's just so much going on. There's so many stressors, and she's just trying to survive, period. Okay. So that's my girl, Abby. We're going to lift Abby up high and hope that she gets more support, more attention and love from her mom, more attention and love from her friends, right? And hopefully she, gets better, right? Hopefully her mental health issues start to improve, okay? Um, let's dive into Mr. Marcus, our homeboy Marcus, okay? Whew. So it is very clear that Marcus is dealing with depression. And this has all started when he lost his best friend to cancer. Horrible. He's depressed and he's grieving, right? So, how do we know? How do we know he's depressed? How do we know he's grieving? It's very clear that he's extremely sad. He's irritable. He's isolating himself from his friends, from his family. He's not willing to engage in anything that he once enjoyed. He's not willing to be social, going back to like him isolating himself. We even see some tearfulness from him when, he broke down when he was talking to Max, right? And then the biggest thing that is really having things take a turn is he's self-medicating with alcohol, and he's also smoking weed, right? So all of these things, we put them all into a pot, and this pot, we call it depression, we call it grieving. And we even see that because of the alcohol use and how he's self-medicating, he's also making poor decisions, the vandalism, him vandalizing that teacher's classroom. So he's also got a lot going on. I want to give a shout out and kudos to Ellen, his mom, and just his family as a whole. Like, they are trying their best. They are doing everything they can to support him. Ellen created an art studio for him. I know they have him connected to therapy. They have him connected to a psychiatrist. They're trying to like get him out of that funk, because depression can just feel like an ongoing funk and you just can't get out of it. So they're trying to get him out of his room. They're trying to do like family game nights. And, Ellen really wanting him to go to the spring dance and just, enjoy himself and have a good time, right? All of that is great. And again, the family is trying. Ellen just sees that her son is not well, that he's sad, he doesn't feel good, and she just wants to fix it. And that's what most parents want to do. When you love somebody and you see that they're hurting, you just want to fix what's going on, right? But I just want to mention a few things, about that. When someone is feeling depressed, when someone is grieving more specifically, it's also important to acknowledge what's going on. And yes, the art studio is great. Yes, therapy is great. The meds, he's connected to a psychiatrist, the family game nights, all of that is great. But it's just a band aid. In my experience, when I have just simply acknowledged what's going on with that person or with the client that I'm working with, it makes a world of a difference, because now they feel understood, they feel seen. And we see that Marcus has moments where he gets frustrated with his family, like, can you guys just leave me alone? Like, you keep trying to make me do things that I don't feel like doing. Like in the conversation he had with Max, that scene where he was breaking down to her and like, I went to that dance to make Jenny happy, to make mom happy, but I didn't want to go. And that is typical of someone who is dealing with depression. Like, you're trying to push them to do something that they simply cannot do, or that they need a lot of energy to do because they're just in such a low space. And so I made some notes here on like, what can you do, if you really are trying to be there for someone who has some of the issues that Marcus is having. And honestly, just by simply providing empathy is the way to go. It is so impactful. And I think people feel like they're not doing enough. Well, now that means you're making it about you and less about the person that you're trying to help. Empathy goes a long way. So I made some notes here, like things that you can say, that can be empathetic, that can be validating, something along the lines of like, since your friend died, I can see that this has been really hard for you. Has anyone in the family done that? No, no. And I know it's implied to the viewers like, okay, this is why he's depressed. He lost his best friend. But within the family unit, if this was a live family in front of me, I would ask, has any of the family members just took time to acknowledge what is truly going on for Marcus and share that with him, spend time with him to discuss that? Because that can really make a difference. It can go a long way. Um, Something else that can make a difference and be helpful is just sitting in that space with the person that you're trying to help, or I would encourage the family to just sit in this space with Marcus. He's not himself right now. Just be present with him. Ask him what does he need, or um, reassure him that you are here to give him whatever he needs, right? Um, Something else that could be helpful is just simply being an active listener, just listening. If they want to talk about what's going on with their emotions, what they're thinking, just listen. Listening goes a long way, right? If they want to reminisce about the good times with their friend or whoever they lost, just listen. Listening goes, again, a long way. And it just broke my heart that, watching the last two episodes, 3 and 4, Marcus is literally fighting for his life, but he's also trying to make all these other people happy. That's tough. That's tough. And that can also feel just really lonely, right? Because you're dealing with all of your stuff pretty much by yourself, and then you're trying to keep other people happy, and it's just heavy. That's just a lot. So, yeah, so just keeping those things in mind. If you are, a friend of someone who is dealing with depression, if you are, with, have a family member that is dealing with depression, again, empathy goes a long way. Active listening, being supportive, even just like taking time to understand that person's perspective, putting yourself in their shoes and considering their feelings. Those things can go a long way. Yes, we want to, focus on the more tangible things. Like, again, Ellen, the mom, she knows she created the art studio because she's trying to get him into doing the things that he once loved and getting him outside of his room. All of that is beautiful. Coping skills are beautiful. Healthy coping skills are beautiful. But if we are not acknowledging and recognizing what has led to this particular issue, we're just going to be stuck. We're just going to be stuck. And that person can just feel like they're not being understood. They're literally crying for help, and everyone is helping or thinking they're helping, but there's other ways that you can help that will be much more impactful. Okay? Um so let me know your thoughts in the comments about Marcus and Abby. Um, is there any part of you that relates to these characters? And, like, I feel like a common thread, between these two specific characters is the support that they need. And so, as I leave you guys, I just want you to think about, what does support look like in your life? Do you feel comfortable asking for support? Is it hard for you to ask for support, right? Support is such a huge component to overcoming different obstacles and challenges, and we all need it, period. We all need support, right? So think about that with yourself. Like, is it hard for me to ask for support? Do I have a lot of support? Has this person tried supporting me and I maybe resisted that and pushed that away? Do I know what I need? Do I know how to articulate what I need? These are just good questions to ask yourself, and you know, don't be afraid to ask for support. Don't be afraid to do that. It's necessary. We all need each other. We need each other. That's how we get through this crazy thing called life. Okay? Even I'd be needing a lot of support. I was just talking to a friend yesterday and needed some support on some things. So no one is above support. We all need it. It's important. It's essential to our mental health. Essentially, support is a part of improving your mental health. It's one of the major components, in my opinion. So I hope that you do have people in your life that are extremely supportive. If you don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to reach out. You deserve it. You need it. You are worthy of support, and it's necessary. Okay.